Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Open Mic by Villgro Philippines. This Women's Month, we celebrate women entrepreneurs who drive positive solutions at the nexus of climate, gender, and health. We recognize how women and girls are undeniably powerful change agents in climate action as innovators, leaders, entrepreneurs, workers, and customers in climate-related fields. I guess just before I get into it, just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Denise Dalusong. I'm the head of gender and inclusion here at Villgro Philippines. And with us today is Czar Carbonel, or Czar, who's the co-founder and CEO of MAGWAI, a personal care brand focused on supporting the rehabilitation and development of the marine ecosystem at large through their personal care products. Hi, Czar. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us.
Thank you for having me too, Denise. Thank you.
So I know I've been saying this a lot, and even in our team meetings, they hear it. But every time they ask me about enterprises that are in this nexus, I automatically just say MAGWAI, and that's also why we've been talking to you a lot. But maybe for those who don't know, you can walk us through what exactly is the problem that MAGWAI is addressing, and then maybe more specifically, how does MAGWAI make an impact across the three things that we've mentioned earlier, which is climate action, gender equality, and health.
Right. So as you mentioned earlier, MAGWAI, we're a sustainable personal care brand. We focus on protecting the oceans through our products. So we're known for our reef-safe sunscreen and plastic-free shampoo bars. So in essence, we're empowering consumers or helping consumers find these eco-friendly alternatives so they can lessen their plastic footprint and also chemical footprint through personal care. So I guess like that's more of the climate action side, protecting the planet side. On gender equality, in a way, we're also empowering women with these eco-friendly choices, given that women are typically the decision makers when it comes to household product purchases. And even in our internal operations, we're also more intentional in hiring work-from-home moms to provide more working opportunities to stay-at-home moms.
Do you want to talk about like the health aspect of personal care a little bit?
Right. So I guess for the health aspect, that's more of our products. So our products are also more natural. So for instance, our sunscreens, they're not just safe for the coral reefs, they're also like safer for us since they're mineral and not chemical based, since actually chemical sunscreens seep through our bloodstream and could be hormone disrupting, and even the natural. So I think typically these natural products are healthier for us. So that's, I guess, on the health side.
Sure. And I guess that's very clear nga. Like, I guess when I say that, MAGWAI is really kind of operating at the nexus of all of these three things. One of the questions that I had, which I realize now that we have spoken a lot since we've met in the past, but I've never actually heard from you in terms of your background. So
Right.
I guess just very quickly, what is your background? Like, I guess pre-MAGWAI, who was Czar Carbonel, and I guess ultimately what led you to kind of usher in this innovation that is MAGWAI along with your other co-founders?
Right. So before MAGWAI, I've been with marketing. So I've been with marketing for more than 10 years. I was with an advertising agency, Ogilvy. I've handled like a lot of big brands, Nestle, Unilever, other local brands. And I've helped with the strategy and sometimes like digital strategy of these brands. So I think like marketing is such a big part of MAGWAI, and branding also. That's why we're very passionate about branding. And we think also that we really need to be distinctly different entering as a new sunscreen within the sea of existing sunscreens already. So we also have to break the stereotype, knowing that, with eco-friendly products, it's usually very serious, right? And we wanted to break it a bit and make it more fun and colorful in terms of branding. So you can see also how I think that's how MAGWAI stands out as a brand. So I think a big part of it is my marketing background. But apart from that, actually, the inception of MAGWAI, it's more of really personal pain point. I don't know if I talked about it before, but with Villgro, but around 8 years ago, I read an article about how sunscreens are toxic to coral reefs. And I knew I needed a reef-safe sunscreen, and I couldn't find reef-safe sunscreen here, not in the pharmacies, not online. So that was a pain point for me. And that was also a pain point of Mafi, who was my office mate in advertising. So we had the same pain point. And we also saw like a market opportunity there. So we just decided to start developing a reef-safe sunscreen to make it more accessible to tourists and locals in the Philippines.
Sure. I think that sounds great. I guess for those who don't know, Matthew is another co-founder
Yeah,
of MAGWAI. You probably see Czar more often than not, but there are people who work with her directly on this as well. Yeah, I think it's always just a mix of, like you said, right, like your personal experience, but also just generally like your like what would end up becoming your advocacy, right? And like
right.
blending this together so that you can create something or innovate on something. No? And I did want to kind of pin down what you said about branding because ultimately like what is a brand if you're unable to communicate it? And I think that like you said, that's how MAGWAI has been quite successful in I guess like not necessarily normalizing, but I suppose laymanizing the conversation around all of these very technical, like scientific things that have to do with ocean protection.
Right,
And
right.
like you said, like the whole
True.
natural aspect of doing sustainable personal care. I actually wanted to mention very quickly that MAGWAI does such a great job at sharing their impact through like just a series of carousel slides. So they do it quite often. So if you don't follow them on socials, definitely do so because it's such a quick read. It's so easy to kind of just look at what MAGWAI has been doing in terms of, like reusing plastics, right? And kind of like
Right.
all of these different ones, which actually leads me to my next question, which is um, maybe for those who haven't seen those slides, how do you measure your impact? Like, what are the key metrics that you've been using, and why are these the important metrics for MAGWAI to measure?
Right, right. So ayun, I mentioned that our main products are Reef Safe sunscreen and plastic-free shampoo. So and these products offset chemical pollution in the ocean and also offset the traditional liquid shampoos plastic packaging. So on the surface level, we correlate our sales with the volumes of the chemical pollution offset through the purchase of MAGWAI Reef Safe sunscreen, and then also measure the tons of plastic offset through the purchase of MAGWAI plastic-free shampoo bars, conditioner blends, and facial bars, because we also have other plastic-free products. So instead of users or consumers using the traditional products, they use like something that's plastic-free instead. So that's kind of what we measure. But that's kind of on the surface level. So we're also refining our theory of change, and we're going back to our goal of cultivating the lifelong commitment to sustainable living and marine conservation. So actually, starting this year, we do market research every year. So we'll include in our market research measuring the percentage of users who stick to long-term sustainable lifestyle, because that's our goal, not just like trial of our products, but getting them into the lifestyle, because it's easy and enjoyable actually to use these sustainable products.
Right. And that's so interesting because actually just yesterday I was reading this thing about how you can transition from being responsive to
Right,
transformative in the way that you do business. And I guess that's kind of like the shift that you're slowly trying to get into, right? Like you're
right,
responding to the needs, which is, they probably need like a shampoo bar holder, and then you'll create like a plastic-free version of that, and then they make
right,
the purchase, and then that's it. But ultimately, like how do you transform lifestyles, right? Which would,
right,
I suppose, be on the product development side, but also would include some interventions in terms of, I guess, further communicating the story of MAGWAI, right? Communicating all of these like issues that, like ultimately affect
Right.
their personal lives as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. One of the things that we hear a lot of from entrepreneurs that go through our programs at Villgro Philippines, but sometimes even the ones who don't, they kind of just share because they're part of like a larger community of impact entrepreneurs, is that they know that their businesses have impact because that's kind of
Mm,
how they've designed the business, but they never know how to start um, like measuring that impact, figuring
right.
out like what impact they actually want to be
Mm,
focusing on in the first place. Because it's one thing to say, right, that you wanna create like a climate solution, right? Or you wanna create
mm,
something sustainable, but like under that is like a whole like other world of like different like subsectors, right? Things that you want to kind of focus on. I'm
right.
wondering in the experience of Magwai, I guess how has your impact journey started? Generally, like how did you kind of get started there?
Right. Actually, that's a good point because, when we started, it was literally just a product idea, like what I shared earlier. We just needed like a reef-safe sunscreen for ourselves. And we were thinking that, okay, we also have this statistic that one drop of chemical sunscreen or oxybenzone can be toxic to corals in very, very low concentration. So we just had that idea, but we didn't really know how to measure it initially. So it was actually very helpful that we were part of the communities, the impact communities. It started with being part of the first accelerator that we joined, PhilDev's ESIP. So that's where we learned all the frameworks. Like someone from UNDP even had a talk and visited here in Manila to have a talk on theory of change. That's where we learned how to craft it. And then from then on, we were just like optimizing and recrafting it to make sure that it's not just like surface level, because that could also be the tendency. But there are so many other aspects, and it always goes back to like the bigger goal, which is for us, it's cultivating that sustainable living for our consumers. So even just talks to other people within the industry, like that helps refine our model. And in fact, we also joined this program by the ASEAN Foundation, and then even got like a free consulting from this is from Indonesia. So it's like we didn't definitely crack it at the one time, and even until this year, we're still refining the theory of change and the metrics that we're measuring. So I think it's a journey for us as well. But yeah, the goal is, of course, like how do we ensure that we measure and we scale the impact? Yeah, well,
Yeah, no, and thank you so much for sharing that. I think ultimately that's what entrepreneur support organizations are for, right? Which is to support the enterprises,
right, right.
and kind of really like provide them with, like you said, like the frameworks that would help
Yeah,
them, I guess visualize and verbalize a lot of these things so that they can be implemented. You mentioned again specifically around impact and maybe the theory of change being something that you learned specifically from your experience in going through programs. But I guess aside from that, how else do you think these programs have been able to help businesses like yourself amplify your impact? Maybe you can mention the things that have really helped you the most in doing that. I know um, enterprises will usually join programs for funding, but maybe there are other aspects to programs that you found now that you've been around for a while, have helped Maguire really kind of scale or even just sustain the business.
right. So definitely being part of the community and being incubated, being part of these accelerator programs really helped us a lot. Like we definitely wouldn't be where we're at right now or having this much impact without these programs, being part of these ecosystems. So of course, there's that foundational level wherein usually there are grants given, so that has been very helpful on the cash flow level for us. But I think what really helped us a lot is the bespoke mentorship and also the connections to potential partners and impact investors. So, I mean, I just talked earlier about the workshop that we had to further refine the theory of change of MAGWAI, and that was part of like one of our bespoke mentorships from this program. So that really helped a lot. But I think what's also interesting is how unique the impact community is, because they really help us be part of the community, and being part of this community of entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs. So I also feel that I'm not alone in this journey, and I'm always inspired by my fellow entrepreneurs' impact that they're making.
Oh, and thank you so much for sharing that, because I think sometimes people forget that there are those other aspects to joining a program, like ultimately it does open you up to invaluable networks, right? That if you find the right ones, or like strategically if you make the right partnerships, could really help like scale or exponentially grow the business where you want to take it. So thank you
Right.
so much for sharing that. You mentioned that like you as an enterprise, ultimately you are responsible for the impact that
Yeah.
you're making. So I guess maybe a bit more of a I guess idea slash lofty question. What is really the role of enterprises in, I guess, generating or creating positive social and environmental impact?
Right. So I think so we're talking about the positive social and environmental impact, right? And usually there are a lot of there are a lot of components to that. There's the government for the policy making, the academe, there's the consumers to take action. But I think what's special with the enterprises, social enterprises, we always try to innovate. We always try to push what's possible and not necessarily what's business as usual. So we always like seek a new ways. So even like for example for MAGWAI, there's the sunscreen, right? The sunscreen industry, wherein the ubiquitous ones or the chemical based, but it's about like finding better ways to innovate, innovating the current industry. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we still need to develop in terms of technology, especially since the climate movement is still a bit nascent, but it's also pretty exciting. So I think that's what social enterprises bring, the innovations. And also ensuring that it's not just like a technology or innovation, it actually works in the market, because we get to test it and see if the market responds, and see if it could become something that's sustainable. Because if it's sustainable, it could something that could be scalable and could also, in turn, scale the impact.
Right. And I love what you said about how each actor in the ecosystem contributes, or like has a role to play within their spheres of influence, right? Like government does policy. Again, like we said, entrepreneur support organizations are there to kind of
Right.
help provide frameworks and tools, access to learning and networks. You have your customers who ultimately will create the demand. Maybe very similar to your experience where you were looking for something and it pushed you to innovate. But ultimately, it will be up to the entrepreneurs to kind of change what's existing
Right.
in the market, right? Because you're the ones creating the innovations, you're the ones bringing things to us for us to consume.
Mhm.
And I guess that's also just like a call to anybody who's ever thought of like doing it. If there are pain points that maybe you can address
That's true.
with an idea or an innovation, and it at least sounds like that's all possible, given all of these things, right? Not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur, but for those who are and who are, innovative enough to think of a solution, there is like a pathway, or there is like a space for them to also bring forth this idea and ultimately bring it to market, right?
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. um Again, I was reading this thing yesterday which was relevant to transforming responsive solutions, and one of the things that were highlighted in that report was that ultimately you still need to be engaging women in the
Mhm.
discussion, because
That's true.
the data is there. Women are more creative, women bring more
Mm.
innovation. And I guess I'm just wondering, on your, like, or maybe in your perspective, um, how has that like rung true, or maybe it isn't true, right? Like maybe you can talk a bit more about how your experience working with women, maybe yourself,
Right.
any insights you have around women ultimately creating innovation for Magwai, or
Right.
maybe not, so you can
Yeah.
talk a bit about that.
Okay. I guess like for me, what's kind of relevant right now is fundraising. And, we're kind of familiar also with the gender investment gap, and how, there's investors typically gravitate towards um, male entrepreneurs. And I guess like it's, if you're a woman, it's kind of scary to think about that. Like, okay, I'll probably have less probability of fundraising. But for some reason, like I only remember it whenever it's brought up. But when I'm running my business, I don't really even think that, oh, I'm a woman and entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur, period. And don't really think much about that. So I don't know if that helps. And maybe I need to be more conscious also on that side. But yeah, I definitely wish that there are more women entrepreneurs who will be more successful also, and could be role models for the girls. Yeah, for the girls who are also dreaming to be businesswomen in the future.
I mean, I think that sounds good, right? Like it's better to not have that as a barrier, than for it to be like a glaring barrier, for when you run your business. I'm wondering, because you've been part of this community, for a while. You were just talking about, for example, engaging with investors. Um, do you like notice any like marked differences in terms of like how many women are in the room when you kind of talk to people in the ecosystem? Are there more women? Surprisingly, you were talking about communities of women entrepreneurs, but maybe like in general, around what has been your experience like in terms of engaging?
Right.
Um,
Right. I think that's very interesting because in terms of my experience, I guess I gravitate towards where the opportunities are for women entrepreneurs. So I guess that's why like my community are also like women entrepreneurs, but the statistics say otherwise. So I think if you're a woman entrepreneur, it's good to like maximize the opportunities that are given to you as well. It's not bad to like take advantage of, for example, accelerator programs of Villgro for women entrepreneurs, right? But yeah, I think so. Definitely, I think these ecosystems that support the women entrepreneurs are very important, because I think without them, I don't know if we'd be where we're at right now.
That's so interesting, because I think that's exactly like the experience, right? Like if you're
Yeah,
so like zeroed in on what you're experiencing alone,
yeah,
then you're probably
yeah,
thinking, there's so many women around me.
yeah, yeah.
Like they're in positions of leadership, right? Like they're the
That's
ones
true.
managing the businesses, there are entrepreneurs everywhere.
Yeah,
But then to your point, like we're still seeing like a stark difference in terms
yeah,
of like who's getting the funding, right?
right.
Even if it is like a pretty even like gender split in
Yeah,
terms of like count, right? And this is something we hear all the time. Like investors are there, but like there's only like a handful of women investors still just investing.
Yeah,
The faces of these firms remain to be
right.
um, men, and they could be allies, which I think is always great. But to your point, I think there should be opportunities rather focus on really just supporting women entrepreneurs so that I guess to um pin down the point of Villgro Philippines to create like an equal playing field, right?
Right.
And then ultimately usher in like more support, more visibility for women entrepreneurs in non-women entrepreneur spaces
Yeah.
per se. So yeah, I think that's really the reason why we have those specialized programs. And that's not just for women, it's also, I'm sure, across like certain intersectionalities, right? Like you really should be optimizing the spaces that are afforded to you. And they could be as hyper specific as like a program that's in like a particular province, but there's
Right,
really
right,
no
right,
like it's not really like a wrong thing, right? To kind of
right.
be engaging in those programs as well. So thank you, Zara, for sharing that. I think I have like just a few more questions. But I wanted to kind of go back to Magwai as a business. Again, like if you know or if you're from the ecosystem, you've probably heard of Magwai before. They're definitely one of the at this point like more seasoned like enterprises. Like I definitely like feel that as well. Like it's only been like a few years if you think about it, but
Yeah,
like there are always just so many like new innovations coming in every day. So more and more so you are kind of maybe like becoming a bit more not necessarily like mature, but maybe that is the word, right? Like in comparison with other solutions in the market. So now that Magwai's been around for a while, I did just want to like ask, what is the vision for Magwai? Like how do you imagine Magwai to be changing? Will it change? Like what's the like if we were to think about like 5 years from now, which is 2030, that's so
yeah.
insane. But like what is the vision for Magwai for that new decade, I
Right,
guess?
right. I think for Magwai, the vision has always been spearheading this movement towards effective, accessible, and truly sustainable personal care products and cultivating that love for sustainable products so that end consumers can be lifelong advocates. So, of course, like at the end of the day, it's about how can we scale up this impact, reducing the chemical and plastic pollution. And I guess like the ultimate vision is to do this not just locally but also globally.
Yeah, no, and that's so like I think ultimately exciting. It's always nice to kind of hear where entrepreneurs are coming from because I think for us, like on the support side of things, you
Mm,
always want to, I guess, like filter through like the entrepreneurs who actually believe in their vision, like you can really
right,
tell if someone's like really passionate about making that change. And we're glad that we're connected with you and we're able to kind of hear all of these amazing insights from Magwai. And yeah, I think now that we're nearing like the end of this podcast, maybe specifically because it is still Women's Month, and we do kind of want to ultimately highlight um, the successes and also maybe opportunities for women entrepreneurs across the world. Like, is there anything that you would want to share? Could be advice, could be just an insight that in hopes to kind of propel more women entrepreneurs to create maybe climate solutions like
right,
Magwai, or
right.
maybe just impact solutions in general. Yeah, we'd love to kind of hear from you as a final thing.
Right. So I guess like also very thankful for Vilgro inviting me and kind of related to that. I think it's about finding your tribe. Um, a big part of our success is not because like I'm so good or like like me and Nafi, it's about us. No, it's not about that. Like it's about the team. It's about the communities that we're part of. And a big part of that is Vilgro and the other incubators and accelerators that have supported us. So whenever you feel like you're alone. You're not, because there's always someone to support you. Yeah, like Villgro and the other accelerators and incubators.
Yeah, no, and thank you for highlighting that. I didn't ask her to plug Villgro for us, but she did anyway. But yeah, no,
It's true
definitely
though.
there are spaces and even like even if you're not interested in like formalized spaces for now, you could just be reaching out to entrepreneurs like Czar,
That's true.
right? If you really kind of just want, you're a bit more introverted, you feel like you're not quite ready to introduce yourself to the ecosystem yet. These entrepreneurs are abound. You can quickly like search them up on LinkedIn, and I'm sure, like Zara said, there will be people out there who are ready to support you. So woman entrepreneur or not, I guess, if you're ready to take that step, or you're interested to kind of learning more about it, there are already all of these players out there who can at any time provide maybe hopefully what you're looking for in terms of scaling your business. But thank you so much, Zar, for sharing your wonderful insights with us this afternoon. Maybe you want to plug Magwai. If people don't know about Magwai yet, how can they find you?
Right. So I think it'll be March when this will be published,
Mm.
and summer is up and coming, so that's perfect for the MAGWAI products. So we'll be in Watsons, and online Shopee, Lazada, and our website. So come find our products there.
All right. Again, that's just Magwai. You can look them up on socials or go through all of those e-commerce slash physical platforms to make your purchase for Magwai. Again, thank you much, Zar.
Thank
And
you
thank you to
also.
everyone who's listened in. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So